June 18, 1994. Middlewick House, 11:42 p.m. Camilla Parker Bowles sat alone in her kitchen, tears streaming down her face as she replayed the phone conversation that had ended just minutes before. For the first time in her 47 years, someone had spoken to her with such devastating honesty that she questioned everything about her life, her choices, and her 25-year relationship with Prince Charles. The voice on the other end of the line had been calm, measured, and utterly merciless. It was Princess Diana, and she had just delivered the most brutal character assassination Camilla had ever heard. But it wasn't Diana's anger that broke Camilla. It was her pity. What Diana said that night would haunt Camilla for the rest of her life, and for the first time, the other woman in the triangle would understand the true cost of destroying a marriage, the phone call that changed everything. June 18, 1994, 11:15 p.m. The direct confrontation. For 13 years, Diana and Camilla had never spoken directly. They had communicated through Charles, through mutual friends, through carefully orchestrated public appearances where they managed to avoid each other entirely. But on this night, Diana had decided to call Camilla directly. The phone rang 3 times before Camilla answered. "Hello, Camilla, this is Diana." Camilla's blood went cold. In all her years of knowing about Diana, she had never heard her voice speaking directly to her. "Diana, what do you want? I want to talk to you, woman to woman, about what you've done to my marriage, my children, and my life." Camilla sat down, her legs suddenly weak. "Diana, perhaps this isn't..." "No, Camilla. You've been hiding behind Charles for over a decade. Tonight, you're going to listen to me." Diana's voice was calm, controlled, almost conversational. Somehow, that made it more terrifying than if she had been screaming. "I want you to understand something, Camilla. I'm not calling to fight with you. I'm not calling to threaten you. I'm calling because I pity you." The word hit Camilla like a physical blow. Pity. Not anger, not hatred, pity. But Diana was just getting started. The devastating truth. "Camilla," Diana continued, "do you know what it's like to be married to a man who whispers another woman's name in his sleep?" Camilla felt tears spring to her eyes, but she said nothing. "Do you know what it's like to give birth to his children while knowing he'd rather be holding your hand in the delivery room? Diana, please. Do you know what it's like to plan romantic dinners, romantic trips, romantic moments, knowing that he's comparing everything to memories he has with you?" Camilla's voice cracked. "Diana, You never meant for what, Camilla? For me to find out? For me to be hurt? Or for me to actually expect my husband to love me?" The questions hung in the air like knives. "But here's what you need to understand." Diana's voice took on an almost gentle tone. "I don't hate you anymore, Camilla. I pity you. Why? Because you've spent the best years of your life loving a man who will never choose you over duty. Because you've destroyed a marriage to be with someone who will never marry you. Because you've made yourself the most hated woman in Britain for a man who won't even defend you publicly." Each word was carefully chosen, precisely delivered, devastatingly accurate. Don't miss this crushing revelation. What Diana said next that shattered Camilla's delusions. The mirror held up. "Camilla," Diana continued, "I want you to think about something. What exactly have you won?" Camilla whispered. "I don't understand. You have Charles's love, you say. But you can't have his name, you can't have his ring, you can't have his children, you can't have his public acknowledgement, you can't even have his full attention because he's still married to me." The truth was suffocating. "You're 47 years old, Camilla. You've been divorced for 6 years. You could have found a man who would marry you, give you a real relationship, a public relationship, a relationship where you don't have to hide and sneak around like teenagers. Charles and I love each other. Charles loves the idea of you, the forbidden fruit, the woman he can't have. But if he could have you completely, legally, publicly, would he still want you?" The question hung in the air, and Camilla realized she didn't know the answer. "I've been married to Charles for 13 years, Camilla. I know him. I know that he loves most what he cannot fully possess. The moment you become completely available to him, the moment there's no obstacle, no forbidden element, no challenge, you'll become as ordinary to him as I am." Camilla felt something breaking inside her chest, but Diana wasn't finished destroying Camilla's illusions. The future prophecy. "Let me tell you what's going to happen, Camilla." Diana's voice took on a prophetic quality. "Charles and I will divorce. Everyone expects that. But here's what you don't expect. He still won't marry you. That's not true. He'll find excuses. The timing isn't right. The public isn't ready. The Queen disapproves. There's always going to be something, Camilla. Because marrying you would mean admitting publicly that he destroyed his marriage for you, and Charles is too much of a coward to face that judgment." Camilla's tears were flowing freely now, and while you're waiting for him to marry you, while you're waiting for your fairy tale ending, you'll watch him grow old. You'll watch his hairline recede and his waistline expand. You'll watch him become more rigid, more set in his ways, more impossible to live with. You don't know Charles like I do. I know Charles better than you do. Diana's voice cracked for the first time. I lived with him. I slept next to him every night. I watched him brush his teeth, and heard him snore, and saw him when he was sick and cranky and boring and human. The silence stretched between them. You love a fantasy, Camilla. You love the Charles who writes you love letters and steals moments with you and makes you feel special. I lived with the real Charles, the one who talks during movies and leaves wet towels on the bathroom floor and gets grumpy when his eggs aren't cooked exactly right. But Diana had one more devastating blow to deliver. The children's truth. 11:26 p.m. The ultimate weapon. Camilla, Diana's voice became very quiet. I want you to think about William and Harry. Diana, please don't bring the children into this. They're already in this. They've been in this since the day you decided their father's marriage vows didn't matter. Camilla felt physically sick. Do you know what William asked me last week? He asked me why Daddy doesn't love Mummy. He's 11 years old, Camilla, and he can see that his father doesn't love his mother. The tears were coming faster now. And Harry, sweet little Harry, who just wants his parents to be happy, he asked me if it was his fault that Daddy goes away so much. Diana, I never wanted the children to be hurt. But you knew they would be. You knew that having an affair with a married man with children would hurt those children. You just decided that your happiness was more important than theirs. The words hit Camilla like physical blows. And here's what's going to happen to those boys, Camilla. They're going to grow up knowing that their father chose another woman over their mother. They're going to grow up with trust issues. They're going to grow up questioning love and marriage and commitment. That's not. They're going to grow up to hate you. Not now, because they're too young to understand. But when they're teenagers, when they're adults, when they understand what you did to their family, they will hate you. The silence was deafening. And when Charles is old and needs care and support, it won't be you he turns to. It will be his sons, the sons who hate you, and you'll be alone. You won't believe Camilla's response to Diana's final devastating prediction, the breakdown. 11:29 p.m. Camilla's emotional collapse. Diana. Camilla's voice was barely a whisper, broken by sobs. What do you want from me? I don't want anything from you anymore, Camilla. I'm past that. I'm calling to tell you that I'm done fighting you for a man who isn't worth fighting for. What do you mean? I mean I'm setting you free to have him. Completely. Publicly. With all his flaws and his selfishness and his inability to put anyone before himself. Camilla was confused. I don't understand. I'm divorcing Charles, and when I do, you'll get exactly what you've been fighting for all these years. Him. All of him. Every boring, selfish, cowardly part of him. Diana. But here's the part you haven't thought about, Camilla. What happens when you win? What happens when there's no more forbidden romance, no more stolen moments, no more excitement of the affair? The question hung in the air. What happens when it's just you and Charles, alone together, with no obstacles between you? When you have to live with him every day, deal with his moods, his demands, his expectations, when you have to be his wife instead of his escape? Camilla realized she had never thought about this. You've been the other woman for so long, you don't know how to be the only woman. And Charles has been having an affair for so long, he doesn't know how to have a marriage. But Diana's final words would haunt Camilla forever. The prophecy. 11:32 p.m. Diana's final prediction. Camilla, Diana said, her voice now almost gentle, in 5 years, when you're married to Charles and dealing with his daily reality instead of his romantic fantasy, you're going to remember this phone call. Diana, you're going to remember what I told you about winning him, meaning losing the excitement. You're going to realize that you destroyed a marriage for a man who was never worth it. That's not true. And in 10 years, when you're still dealing with the public's hatred, when you're still being booed at public events, when you realize that you'll never be loved the way I was loved, you're going to understand that you won the battle, but lost the war. Camilla was sobbing openly now. But most of all, Camilla, you're going to realize that you could have had a real love story with someone else, someone who would have chosen you first, not last, someone who would have married you without hesitation, without scandal, without destroying other people's lives. Diana, please stop. You settled for being second choice to a man who was never worthy of being first choice to anyone. The phone went quiet for a moment. Goodbye, Camilla. Enjoy your prize. You've earned him. The line went dead. The aftermath. 11:42 p.m. Alone with the truth. Camilla sat in her kitchen, still holding the phone, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in 25 years, she questioned everything about her relationship with Charles. Had she really destroyed a marriage for a man who would never fully commit to her? Had she wasted the best years of her life on someone who loved the chase more than the prize? Most devastatingly, had Diana been right about everything? Camilla looked around her empty house. At 47, she was alone, divorced, childless with Charles, hated by the public, waiting for a man who had been promising to choose her for decades but never quite did. For the first time, she wondered what her life would have been like if she had never met Charles, if she had found someone who loved her enough to marry her without destroying other people in the process. She wondered if Diana was right, if she was going to spend the rest of her life regretting this choice. But the most haunting realization was that Diana hadn't called to fight or threaten. She had called to deliver the truth with surgical precision, and the truth was more devastating than any anger could have been. The prediction comes true. 2005, Charles and Camilla's wedding. When Charles and Camilla finally married in 2005, 11 years after Diana's phone call, everything Diana had predicted came true. The public remained hostile to Camilla. She was booed at public events. She was never fully accepted as Charles's wife. William and Harry remained politely distant. Most tellingly, Charles himself seemed less passionate about Camilla once he could have her completely and legally. The forbidden romance had become a conventional marriage, and the excitement had died with the secrecy. Camilla later confided to friends that she sometimes wondered if Diana had been right about everything. Had she won a man who wasn't worth winning? Had she destroyed a marriage for a relationship that was better as an affair than as a marriage? The truth revealed, the phone call between Diana and Camilla on June 18, 1994, marked the moment when Diana stopped fighting for Charles and started fighting for herself. But more importantly, it marked the moment when Camilla first realized the true cost of what she had done. Diana's words weren't delivered in anger or hatred. They were delivered with the devastating clarity of someone who had finally seen the truth. And that truth was that Camilla had spent 25 years fighting for a prize that wasn't worth winning. The conversation lasted only 17 minutes, but it changed both women forever. Diana walked away knowing she was finally free. Camilla was left with the realization that her victory might actually be her defeat. Sometimes the most devastating weapons aren't threats or insults, they're truths delivered with perfect precision by someone who no longer cares enough to lie. The ultimate irony, the greatest irony of Camilla's story is that she got everything she wanted: Charles's love, marriage to him, the title of queen consort, but Diana's prediction proved accurate. The forbidden romance became a conventional royal marriage, complete with duty, obligation, and public scrutiny. Camilla won Charles, but she lost the excitement of being his secret. She gained a crown, but she never gained the public's love. She achieved her goal, but she paid a price that even she hadn't fully calculated. And sometimes, late at night, she still hears Diana's voice asking the question that haunts her most: what exactly have you won? Some victories are indistinguishable from defeat.